What's going on, brothers? Back again. Fourth hangout in about 3 hours here on this channel. This is your boy O'Shea, back with my good friend, and he's no stranger to this channel, my man Dynasty Amir from the channel Search for Uhuhu. What's going on, fam?
What's up, O'Shea? How you doing, brother?
Man, nice doing pretty good. Oh man, anytime, man. Glad to have you back. And sorry, I wasn't able to get you on. We kept missing each other. Due to this week, I'm gonna knock all these hangouts out today so that I will have some free time this week to get everything straightened up. Today we're talking about why Africans don't even control Africa, and why is that? And this is kind of a topic that you just kind of picked and wanted to kind of get your take on this whole situation.
Yeah, I mean, basically, like with the topic, we wanted to go in on something like why, we spoke on how when you deal with China, the Chinese man in China sets the standard. Europe, or we'll say England, the English man in England sets the standard, not the English man, not the English, I guess they call them expats, or not the Chinese immigrant. But for some reason, when it comes to Africa, the diaspora or the African immigrants are the ones that set the standard over the actual Africans that live on the continent, which is somewhat backwards. It should be the other way around. The African on the continent should be leading the way, not the African, of the diaspora. And you see a lot of that with Nigerians. Like the other day, there was a story on a Nigerian girl who I guess, she got accepted to just about every Ivy League school. Or they talk a lot about these Nigerian doctors, how they're so successful outside of Nigeria, how they're successful in the UK as far as opening up clinics. Same thing in America. For some reason, you really don't hear much success about Nigerians in actual Nigeria, except for of course, the likes like Aliko Dangote, who's the richest black man on the planet, or whatnot. So I just think it's backwards. I think the African on the continent should be the one setting the standard, not the African of the diaspora and leading the way.
Well, let me ask you this, because you've been to Africa, several countries there. Many Africans don't even own certain merchants places, like I know that the Lebanese are there. Many Arabs are there. Why is it that I guess it's somewhat similar to maybe the African Americans and Black communities in America, where the Arabs own a lot of stores and Koreans. Why is it that even in Africa, the Lebanese are really controlling much of the merchandise and the markets, and these people are okay with it?
The same way they're okay with it here in America. Like you said, if you go in the Black community, the Korean, the Arab, and the Indian controls all the resources, and the Chinese here in the Black community. Same thing with Africa. The Chinese, the Indian, and the Arab, they control the resources pretty much in a lot of these African communities. And to be honest, I just think. And in fact, it's funny, I had a discussion with a friend from South Africa, and we were discussing South Africans getting their land back that was taken away during apartheid from the Europeans. And he was saying, honestly, a lot of Africans wouldn't know, or the majority of South Africans wouldn't even know what to do with the land if they were to acquire it, and that they would rather just have jobs and work for, the Indian or the Boer, the European in South Africa. And that's why Indians and white South Africans pretty much control the economy of South Africa. And I think that same attitude is the same in pretty much the diaspora everywhere, where they would rather just, and you mentioned it before, instead of building their own YouTube or their own platform, they would rather just work for somebody, which, I get it. But again, in a place like Africa, where the African man should set the standard, I just think it's backwards. Because I mean, that's your birthright, that's your land. Especially like in a place of South Africa, when I hear South Africans saying like, "Look, we don't want the land because we have no clue what to do with the land. we would just rather have jobs. I'm like, whoa, that's your birthright. Why wouldn't you want that? I mean, the wealth comes from the land, and that's what Europeans understood when they colonialized Africa. The first thing they went after was the land, then of course your religion. Why wouldn't you not want your land? So again, I just think it's just being in the state of just being content with just having a job, because I don't think they have the resources or I guess the courage to build for themselves. And that's in America, that's black people in America, that's black people everywhere. So I don't want Africans acting like we're calling them out, but the African man in Africa needs to set the standard of the tone for all black people across this planet, not the other way around. And I feel like we're the only people that do that.
I really think that's also the truth, where you see, it is the other way around. Like the British blacks or the African Americans, they are the, kind of the standard. And I mean, that kind of goes back to even, I guess like back to the Marcus Garvey days of him looking up to Booker T. Washington, to Kwame Nkrumah looking up to Booker T. Washington, trying to set their own things. I think because blacks in America had their stuff together a little bit more first, as far as institutions of learning and maybe worship. Well, I won't say worship, but as far as learning in colleges. But really, as Africa is moving, Black people in America are also paying attention to that. Because many Black people, even though they may not ever go to the continent, they do feel somewhat of a connection to Africa, although they've never been there. And I think what you're saying is right. A lot of Black people are looking for, Africa to try to work more with African Americans, maybe to do what Ghana is doing, like, make it easier for them to come stay there or bring their skills there. Why don't we see more African countries opening up their doors maybe to African Americans or to British blacks? Why do you think it doesn't happen as much?
That's a good question, and I've asked that several times, because if you notice, like every African country, they have an embassy in DC or New York, but they do a poor job as far as reaching out and engaging Black Americans. But instead, they would rather engage, Chinese, the Arab, or whatnot. But as we've come to learn, is that outside groups never have the best interests of Africa as a whole. So at the end of the day, you have to deal with a lot of corruption. Because you got to think about it. If all Black people across this planet came together, united, what that would do? You know what that would lead to? And you have greedy politicians in Africa that, instead of thinking about the Black collective, they're just happy with getting their pockets padded, by outside forces that don't have the best interests of Africans at heart. So that's the primary reason why, because they're told not to, for the most part, not to reach out to us. But I just think it's backwards. And at the end of the day, I just think African leaders are just going to have to grow a pair and man up, instead of being afraid, and start making moves on their own instead of allowing the West to control them. So they're told not to reach out to us for the most part.
So let me ask you this. Well, why is it that how can I say this? We have in Africa right now a lot of Chinese infiltration,
right?
Especially like in Chad. Definitely in Kenya. I know you went to Senegal. There's a huge statue that was built for several hundred. Well, actually, it was a gift, right? There's a huge statue built in Senegal.
It was built by North Korea.
It's built in North Korea. Okay, so a country like Senegal, which that statue probably cost, I don't know, a few $100 million to create. Why isn't Senegal not saying, hey, well, fuck this statue. You know, we need a medical school. A country like Ivory Coast, which has only one medical school in the whole entire country of 20 million people. I mean, and they built this big basilica, the biggest church in Africa, and the biggest Catholic church.
I think it's the biggest Catholic church in the world, the basilica.
Yeah, actually, it is. It is actually. It is bigger than Church of Rome.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's a $300 million church in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
It's stuff like this that makes me raise the eyebrow, you know, at certain African, especially West African countries. You know, why is it that we're not seeing? Why are we missing so many opportunities to own and run infrastructure? We could take that $300 million that it costs to build that basilica, and we can have, you know, better roads. And for example, before I let you respond, I was watching. There's this thing called. Let me see. There's this particular channel called, I don't know, Vibe TV. It has a lot of African blogging on there. And they're Vice TV, actually Vice. You ever heard of Vice?
Yeah, but Vice is on that bullshit though. Especially when they cover Africa, I'm very familiar with Vice. They're on HBO.
Oh, HBO, okay. But one thing they had was this truck driving situation where it took a truck driver to get from Benin to Nigeria, 200 miles, took 3 or 4 days just to get products there because of all of the shams, all of the people that are trying to bribe you, and it ends up making the products cost more to the consumer. It's things like this. Why can't Africa get it together? You know, what's the problem here?
It starts from the top. I mean, it's just poor leadership. I mean, these leaders are just so greedy and corrupt. And this is the thing. I forgot who said this. So they were saying, what's the difference between a Japanese leader and an African leader? You know, of course, a Japanese leader, his pockets are getting padded, but he's content with, you know, getting a gift of, we'll say, a freaking Honda. But the African, he wants a damn Rolls Royce family. It's just, it's greed. And again, not having the best interest of the collective. That's the issue. But these politicians, they have to go. So again, it starts from the top up because again, when the leaders are greedy, they're not paying, you know, when the leaders are up top aren't paying the people below, they end up being corrupt. And then it's just a domino effect. Everyone's just fucking corrupt because it starts from the top. So once the top, as far as leadership, once they become honorable, okay, and focus on a collective, you know, as like a Thomas Sankara, then all that stuff will stop. But it's just poor leadership and leading by a bad, poor, terrible example when people below are following that terrible example. So that's where all that's coming from.
Let me use Botswana for an example. And I know when I talk about like one of the least corrupt countries in Africa, and I want to do a podcast on this, Botswana is a model country. I mean, this was a country that in the 60s was the poorest country in the world. And Botswana with this, I believe they have like coal mining or diamonds there. But anyway, it is probably the pound for pound, the best black country in Africa. They just built a new medical school there. They have excellent facilities, excellent roads and things of this nature. And they have very, 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 very little corruption. So we can see that you can be the poorest country in the world, and then you can really come up, you know, in a short period of time. And you mentioned Thomas Sankara, who in 1983, when he became president, turned that country around within 4 years.
Right.
Just 4 years can turn. I mean, you know, countries can turn around in 4 years, but then it comes to the point where if you say, okay, if you get a big country like Nigeria that does what Botswana is doing, then isn't that a threat to the world? Like, you know, do the outside forces want a big country like Nigeria or a country like Ethiopia getting it together? I mean, what's your thought on that?
Because once, like within Nigeria, you have oil. And in fact, I want to say there's like more oil in Nigeria than there is like in Saudi Arabia or something to that effect. Now imagine Nigeria benefiting off of the actual, and Nigerians benefiting off of the oil resources.
Mm-hmm.
That means it's going to take away from corporate profits from these outside entities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then again, they don't want Black people to unite. That's at the end of the day, that's what it is. As far now, that comes from the Chinese, you know, Saudi Arabians, Europeans. They do not want a united Africa, because once a united Africa, once that happens, everyone else is shoved out the marketplace. Everyone else, basically, with a united Africa, the dark ages, and they don't want that. So that's why they fuel. You know, they put these leaders in their pockets. Of course, they're corrupt, and then also too, a lot of African leaders are scared to stand up because they're afraid of, you know, a Western-backed coup like Thomas Sankara, Patrice Lumumba. What happened to them? They're afraid of that as well. So again, America unites, Europe goes into the dark ages, and that's what they're afraid of, and they know that. I'm sorry, Africa unites, Europe goes into the dark ages, and that's what they're afraid of. So that's why they're unstable. That's why they would rather see Africa unstable.
Okay, let's talk about, like, you know, some of the Africans who have been scattering in other countries, you know, trying to escape oppression. For example, we see a lot of Nigerians that have went to South Africa, and they're being met with violence, being treated as outsiders and things of this nature. What's your thoughts on stuff like that?
When you say violence, say that one more time.
Well, a lot of Nigerians are actually being killed in South Africa.
Right. I just think Nigerians have a bad reputation in Africa in general, all over Africa. Like for example, in Kenya, there's a certain, like, if you have a $50 bill USD, it has to be a certain year and newer. It can't be, I think, older than a 1998 bill. And the reason why is because they were saying that Nigerians were counterfeiting the $50 bills older than 1998. So they're bad. It's just Nigerians have a terrible reputation. Like, I was in New York, and there's a Nigerian, their national airline, I think it's called Eric Air. It flies direct from JFK to Lagos. And like, even a taxi driver was just saying the scams that Nigerians be pulling on the taxi drivers in New York, as far as giving fake $100 bills, just fake money, not paying the cab driver. When I was in Senegal, I was trying to get some work done, and the first thing they asked me was if I was Nigerian. When I said no, I'm not Nigerian, they were like, "Good, now we can help you out." So I just think Nigerians just have a bad reputation all over Africa, just as far as fraud and counterfeiting and whatnot.
Well, you know, but you know, let's just you know, as far as you know, African Americans, any black person that would like to go to Africa and you know, possibly move or help there, you know, we will also be looked at as outsiders, maybe, or I don't know. I mean, how was it when you were there?
I wasn't looked at as an outsider. It was more of a welcome home. I think we get this outsider stereotype. It starts from, for some reason, the Africans that relocate to the West. They're the ones that stereotype as outsiders. But once you actually go to Africa, I didn't have any issues. They were just worried if I was Nigerian or not. When I said I'm not Nigerian, everything was cool. It was like, let's do business, let's hang out, let's get it in. So I think a lot of the Africans who leave Africa and relocate, especially to America, they're the ones that feed this stereotype that, you know, Africans in Africa don't get along or don't respect Black Americans. But when you go over there, it's completely different. So that's what I noticed. There's really no issues.
Really no issues. Okay. So I know you said, you know, you would be willing to, go to Senegal. And somebody just made a comment: the Chinese are buying up Africa.
They are.
In the comment section.
They are.
I mean, I know African Americans. Many of us have the mindset. Well, I need to worry about what's in America. Certainly, I've thought that way too before until I've been opening my eyes to see things different. What should we be worried about as far as African Americans? Should we be worried about trying to reestablish ourselves back on the continent?
I think, like you mentioned before, I think our influence is so strong. I mean, Black Americans can pretty much go anywhere and set up shop, and I think they propagate the stereotype that since a lot of Black Americans were not successful here in America, that we can't be successful anywhere else. And I think that's false. I mean, you got to think about it. The Europeans that came here and settled America, what were they doing in Europe? They were unsuccessful. They were complaining. They were whining. And so they did. So I just think they put that out there because, again, they don't want us working together. Because like a lot of my African friends admitted, the Black American man is the most prepared man on the planet because we've gotten the skills, and so they rather the Chinese or the Arab or the European to help out Africans and the Black American too, because they know at the end of the day we'll have their best interests at heart. But yeah, I mean, I think many Black Americans who relocate to Africa, they can definitely be successful. I mean, don't think that America is your only option. Like you go to school in Poland. So, and you're successful, you're going to be a successful doctor. So you don't have to just limit yourself if you're Black to just America. I mean, there's a world outside of America. I mean, you look at the Moors. The Moors, they went into Europe, into Spain, into France, conquered Spain and France, and were successful there. So, you don't have to just limit yourself to just America.
Let me ask you this because I keep hearing people say, well, if Black people go to America, then what's going to end up happening, or Black to Africa, then what we may see is another Liberia situation where you have these talented Black people from Africa or from America. Just keep in mind, most Blacks who would travel to Africa probably going to be some of your most educated Blacks. They're going to be some of the most talented Blacks. They'll be the Blacks who are able to, maybe engineers, maybe be doctors or bankers. They'll come to a country like maybe Liberia or Sierra Leone, and what they're going to do is become the upper elite. And then they're going to, use the lower partitions of those Blacks to exploit them, So it's going to be Liberia all over again. What do you say when you maybe hear that type of argument?
I think people should really research what happened with Liberia. Number one, the first Black Americans that came to Liberia, they married the locals and intermixed the locals. So these, I guess, Black American Liberians that, were allegedly responsible for what happened in Liberia, they were technically already mixed with a lot of the locals anyway. And then the number of Black Americans that came to Liberia was so small in number, it wasn't a lot, if you're really looking at it, that I just think they, again, exaggerate Liberia, what happened, in order to justify or carry out this stereotype that Black Americans should not go to Africa, and that Africans or Black Americans come over, you shouldn't trust them. I just think they really, really exaggerate the Liberian situation. Because again, go ahead.
Well, here's the thing though, right? So the Americans, even though they intermix, which is different from the Indians in Uganda, where they never intermix, they kind of set themselves separate. What the African Americans did do is they set up settler values. So even if they did intermix, the offspring of those males became anti-African in so many words, or maybe anti you know, the original religion. You know, they became Christian. They came with a American accent. You know, they were considered themselves to be under the umbrella of a culture of what an African American was, and not what the culture of a straight, you know, Mandingo African or what's some of those other a Crew Liberian. You see, this is what I'm saying. So the African Americans, they may have intermixed, but they did set themselves up in a separate class that ruled the others based off of what was going on in America. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So how would you respond to that?
I would respond to that is another thing too, like the actual Black Americans that came to Africa, to Liberia, were like, you know, the Charles Barkley types, freaking Sage Steele types, Stephen A. Smith types. Mm-hmm. So those are the ones that were pretty much funded by, I think it was the Freedmen's Bureau that Abraham Lincoln or the people that were now slavery, they funded like for a short time, and they pretty much handpicked the Africans or Black Americans that they wanted to go over there. And so the Black Americans that they chose were the ones that would serve the best interest of America over there. So I just don't see that happening, because those same, I guess, Black Americans today are so comfortable here in America that they would not even consider relocating to Africa. Mm. Versus back then, you know, I think it was called the Freedmen's Bureau. I forgot the name of the actual group that first came up with the idea of.
Oh, you're talking about the American Colonization Society.
Something like that, right. So they funded it for like the first, like, what, 20 or 30 years or something like that. So they handpicked specific Black Americans, gave them dough, and sent them over. You know, and you know, when they pick one of us to head a project like that, they're going to have a specific type of Black American in mind that will still serve the best interest of America. And so that's what they did. That's why you have that problem. But again, 2017, those same Black Americans, they're not trying to go over to Africa because they're comfortable here in America. So I just don't think it won't happen again.
So do you think that, let's say, you know, you start getting a concentrated amount of, you know, well-to-do African Americans, let's say you get 20,000, 30,000 moving over to Liberia, what's going to happen to Liberia in 10 years if you get, you know, this probably will never happen, but let's say you get 30 to 40,000 of your best Blacks moving to Liberia. What will happen to Liberia in the first 10 years after that?
It just depends on which Black Americans make it over there. The ones that are really trying to build and focus on the collective, I mean, Liberia can go nowhere but up. But again, if you have some that are funded by the West that are sent to Liberia just kind of like being nosy and reconnaissance mission, that are going to serve the best interest of the Black collective or serve the best interest of the West, then it can go to shit. So again, it just depends which Black Americans you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have to look at when Liberia was first founded. Just imagine basically what happened. Like, you had the COINTEL program, you know, infiltrated, you know, the civil rights movement, infiltrated, you know, the Nation of Islam. Those are the type of Black Americans that got sent to Liberia. It was nothing but like, you know, past COINTEL. So that's why it failed the way it did. But you got to understand, Liberia, I don't know if you know this, I think they're number 1 or number 2 on the planet as far as timber exporting. Mm-hmm. So, of course, the West wants those resources. So that's what happened.
Mm-hmm. So I guess what I want to say is, so we talked about that. I'll tell you what I think, you know, and this may not be very popular, but I think that if you do ever get, you know, talented Blacks moving to a place like Liberia, what's going to happen is what happens whenever you get very smart people in any society. Smart people typically take advantage of dumb people. You know what I mean? I know you have humanitarian people out there and stuff like that, But I actually think, and this is not racist, but I actually think that a country like Liberia is probably better off with more intelligent people running it than it is now. I think that Shirley Johnson, I mean, you can say what you want to say, but I mean, the fact that she makes $85,000 a year and the average person in Liberia makes 400, it says something about that, and that every single student failed. I think it was last year, the University of Liberia entrance exam. And the fact that she and her staff can get paid, but your doctors are still striking, despite getting tons of money from monetary aid. I mean, for to me, I really think that a country like Liberia, it was better off under American Liberian rule than it is now. It is a complete shithole, from what I've heard. And I mean, just to be a country where it takes almost 7 or 8 hours to get to one part of the country to the other, where it takes like 2 hours, it takes you literally 7 hours or 8 hours to drive 100 miles. I mean, that's insane, So
I agree, but that's just poor African leadership across the board. I mean, Africa, definitely a lot of countries do, not all, I would say Namibia, South Africa, Kenya, their roads are better here in America. But then you have some places that literally, once you leave the city, the roads are bad. I mean, I just think that's common amongst Africa altogether. But again, the resources are there, the wealth is there to actually build the infrastructure in Africa. It's just the African leaders are misappropriating the money. So again, corruption.
Yeah. What can well, I think we have corruption throughout all the continent, and I mean not the continent, but throughout the whole entire Black diaspora. I mean, you got corruption amongst Black American communities. You got corruption in African countries, corruption amongst Black Brazilians. What can Africa do to limit the corruption that it has been bestowing onto its people, or at least lower it? I'm not saying get rid of it, because you can't get rid of it. But what are some things that Africa can do to at least lower it?
They're going to have to stand up and take on these leaders, man. I mean, it's going to have to come to blows. I mean, Africa is due a mini revolution. I mean, they're due for one. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. They're going to have to come to blows with these leaders, remove them, and then put people in that have their best interests, and then the people need to hold them accountable.
I think one of the problems is with Africa is you have so much tribalism. That's the problem, like with Nigeria. I mean, if you look at the decline of Nigeria, it's okay. Well, the North is in control, and okay, well, the Igbo is in control, and then civil war, and the North has it. I think the problem with like these countries like Liberia, or even like like Nigeria, it's a tribalism. So that person who gets elected is not really representing that country, but more so his tribe. Like Samuel Doe did with the Quran, and that tribe will want special favors. They will expect him to appoint them to high cabinet positions. They will expect that person to have this particular person into military personnel. And also, let me ask you this: what do you think about there being a United States of Africa?
They need it. Actually, I had this. I was having this conversation, somewhat debate with somebody on my page. I think it's stupid because of Black people across the globe, our situation. It's stupid that we continue to divide ourselves by religion, tribe, fucking, I guess, not even gender, but sexual lifestyle, political affiliation. It's stupid as hell. Because I mean, we're last in everything, so we are in no position to keep ourselves separated. So I think the United States of Africa will be great, but at the same time, you gotta understand these northern African countries, Morocco, Egypt, like they're African when it's convenient. They primarily identify as Arabs, like especially Egypt. Like Egypt, it's pretty much Saudi Arabia, So I think as far as uniting United States of Africa, I don't really see the northern African countries coming on board unless, you know, they see some type of benefit from it for them. But the United States of Africa, it needs to happen. Because like I said, it's just silly that we separate ourselves by tribe, religion, sexual orientation, and all this other stuff. So,
why do you think that it would happen or it won't?
man, that's a tough one. Well, you know they have the African Union, but I don't know what the hell they do. I think I mean it's possible. I mean I'll never count it out. I think it's possible, but again, there's just too many hidden hands, you know, pulling strings. And again, Africans are just scared shitless of it. I mean, the Africans in rule know who the hidden hands are, but they're just scared shitless of them to stand up to them because they're afraid of being made an example like Thomas Sankara or Patrice Lumumba.
Let me tell you, like I live, you know, everybody know I live in Europe, in the European Union, how it works. I guess I could kind of explain what Africa would be like under the European Union concept. So if you've been to Europe and you're in the European Union, not only are the borders blocked, which means that if I want to get on a plane and go to Hungary, they don't, you know, I don't have to get a passport stamp, you know, like I don't have to go through customs again. You know, like when I was, for example, when I came from the United States to Norway, Norway is not in the European Union. So it took me, you know, an hour to go back through checking and go back through all this shit again and all this stuff, you know. I don't have that problem in the European Union. Another thing about the European Union that's good is if you get educated in the European Union, get this, your degree is good everywhere in the European Union as long as you can speak the language of that particular country. So it allows you free movement, not only, you know, physically, but the education, right? And a lot of students, let's say, for example, because the United Kingdom is still in the European for right now, if you can't get into medical school in the United Kingdom, no problem. Come to medical school in Poland, you can go back to European, you know, you can go back to UK, and your degree is just as good as if you went there. You know, there's a lot of flexibility that the European Union has that even America doesn't have, and it's you know, education is cheaper. You know, it's really, really good. It's actually, to me, I think even better than the United States of America, the way the European Union works. But I guess for the African Union, though, you know, the United States of Africa, a lot of people are going to say, hey, the borders that we have now of Africa were not established by us in the first place.
They weren't. So
why should we have to open up, you know, our borders to these people? And let's say for a country like South Africa, which is very, very developed as it is, I mean, now you're going to have an influx of people going to South Africa, you know, because South Africa is well developed. I mean, what do you say to questions like that, you know?
Again, we're in no position to divide ourselves. Like we're not in any position to. I mean, again, we are the poorest people on the planet with the richest resources, with the most wealth on the bottom of under our feet. Like we're in no position to reject a concept like yours. I mean, it doesn't make sense, you know, because we're losing. And African leaders know that, but they just refuse to do it.
I mean, should the other countries that are like, you know, like Morocco, Algeria, Egypt, should they also be included?
If they get on the same page, yeah. I mean, if they move as an African collective, and you know, I'm African when it benefits me, but I'm Arab first, then no.
Right.
So and you see a lot of that, especially in Egypt and Morocco. I'm Arab first, you know, and I'm African when it benefits me. So, you know, I'm Arab on everything else, but when it's time for the African World Cup, you know, we African. When it comes to the African World Cup soccer game, we African. You know?
Right.
So you got to be African with the good and the bad. And they like to play the fifth sometimes.
I know that you're planning on going to Haiti. So I mean, I know Haiti is pretty much like Africa in the Caribbean. I mean,
Right.
so similar to Africa in many different ways. Should a country like Haiti be considered an African Union?
Well, rumor was, which is fucked up. In fact, I think it actually happened. Haiti applied to be part of the African Union. The African Union rejected.
Are you serious?
Yeah, in fact, let me I gotta find this article. It was on here. I read it. It was a couple months ago. African Union, Haiti. Yeah, they weren't able to join. This is from excuse me, May this is from May 20, 2016. Yeah, it said in fact the president of Rwanda he said the African Union is denying that Haiti will become the organization's first non-African member, stating that only African states can join the African Union, which is fucking stupid as hell. But see, little shit like that, man, it's just, I mean, Haiti was the first republic on the west in the West, and then if you understand the voodoo in Western Africa and Benin, like it's like you said, Haiti is Africa for the most part. Just like how America has Hawaii, like Haiti should be considered Africa. You know, even though Hawaii is like 5 hours off the west coast, you know, Haiti, which is probably 5-6 hours off the west coast of Africa, the closest country in Africa, it should be considered Africa.
Right.
So yeah, it's stupid. I mean, again, it only helps Africa if they include countries like Haiti into the African Union. And then as far as solidarity, showing the solidarity towards the West, they'll get the message like, look, Africans are all united. But so yeah, it's stupid.
It looks like there might be a waste of time, but I mean that's just me. But anyways, that's just me kind of how I see it. But what I want to do is, man, I want to shout your channel out for the brothers that's in there. Oh, my internet's going hella slow for whatever reason. Can you guys still hear me?
No, we're good. We're good. I hear you fine.
All right. Let me do this. For brothers, go ahead if you are in the chat. Get the likes up as you know. And brothers, go ahead and subscribe to Search for Uhuru right here in the chat, okay? He's a really good friend of mine, right? And, we want you to support this channel. Brother's doing big things. He has a lot of blogs over in Africa, okay? So I will also put his information in the description. All right. And as you guys know, man, I was a little bit behind on some interviews, and I have been trying to push it.
Yo, Shay, you there?
He's doing big things. He has a lot of blogs over in Africa. Okay, so I will also put his information in. Oh, shit. Hold on. All right. And as you guys know, man, I was a little bit. Okay, I'm echoing here. All right, let me get that. All right, so I had to actually mute him. So let me do this. Dynas, I actually put you on mute because I was echoing, but you can take yourself off mute now. Is there anything last things you want to say?
Nah, I mean, just again, I say this and I can't stress this enough. We need more independent Black media like yourself. Mainstream Black media is pretty much dead. So we need brothers like yourself, Mr. Jab, Angry Man, Ron Wills, myself. We need you guys to continue to put out content And then also people in the chat room. I mean, when you see channels, when you subscribe to channels like O'Shea, please make sure you contribute, because a lot of these brothers, they do it full time. And again, if we don't have people out here telling or sharing our narrative, other people who don't have our best interest at heart will, and we see how that usually ends up. So, you know, like the great John Johnson said, who founded Ebony Magazine, he said back in the 50s, black people were only time black people were allowed in the news was if they committed a crime. So, and they still want to kind of keep it that way. So again, support brothers like O'Shea. O'Shea, thank you for allowing me on the platform. Guys, follow me on social media. Search for Lulu on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook. Also go to www.dynastamir.com. Check out my site. And then I know O'Shea put the link to my YouTube page. Please subscribe. And again, O'Shea, thank you for allowing me on your platform. Keep up the good work and continue to support O'Shea and subscribe.
All right. So like I said, you guys, Dynasty will be back now. I got all my hangouts done for this week. So you know, basically as things free up, you know, Dynasty will be mentioned. He'll be back certainly. I will have Alan Roger Curry back on a block party on a Saturday, brother. So be ready for that. And once again, I thank Dynas for you know, being patient with me, and we've been missing one another, but finally got this hangout done. So I know y'all tired of me today because we've been on. This is my 4th hangout in 4 hours. So we got them all knocked out this week. So once again, thank you, brothers. Thank you, Dynas, for coming on. We'll definitely have you guys back on. Have you back on soon, as always. And peace out, y'all.
Peace out. Appreciate it.
Peace.